This is a series of short lessons from leaders and influencers in the self-reliance industry. We cover relevant topics to what we call the 4 pillars of self-reliance, which is preparedness, survival, sustainability, and the simple life, which is really, it's the homesteading, which is not always so simple. Today, I'm very excited we have Troy Staples, who is the Director of Preparedness and Resilience for Colorado and Wyoming for the Red Cross. September is National Emergency Preparedness Month. So Troy is going to share with us a few things that have been on his radar, and they've been awfully busy with all of the floods, fires, and hurricanes. Fortunately, I don't know of many big earthquakes that we've had, but hopefully that's not going to be something that will be on our radar anytime soon. But not to mention COVID. So Troy, I'm going to turn this over to you, and why don't you share with us a few of the things that are on your radar, what you guys have been looking for, or what you've been dealing with, and maybe a few short tips of what folks can do to protect themselves and their families. And even though they may not be on the West Coast or in the flood zones, there's still a lot of things that we all need to be aware of throughout the United States. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Troy.
Thank you, Kiki. Lots of disasters happening right now throughout the country between Hurricane Hannah and tropical storms of hurricanes Laura and Sally, and all the wildfires across the western United States. I believe there's close between 40 and 50 wildfires burning in the western United States, some small, some burning in areas that were not being affected, to very large ones where I believe in Oregon almost 500,000 people have been evacuated, and it's getting worse and worse on the fires and the drought. Here in Colorado, we've had a lot of fires in Wyoming. Fortunately, some of them are in rural areas where not many people are getting affected. The Cameron fire itself right now is growing, and more evacuations happen over the weekend. And if we have a long drought winter, it's probably going to get worse. So the Red Cross responds to those in a lot of different ways. We help do sheltering. We work with first responders and local communities and set up shelters, mental health, health services, spiritual care, some assistance with getting people to get back on their feet for recovering, and putting other organizations and nonprofits together to help create a coalition with the volunteer organizations active in disaster to help with long-term recovery all across the country. So we're always there before helping people prepare. We're there for responding, and we're there for recovery with us and our other volunteer organizations and the public sector. But so we're very busy. Always looking for volunteers, and we'll talk about that at the end if anybody's interested, helping us prepare people or responding or recovering. But with disaster responses, everyone always thinks about the bad day, really bad days, hurricanes, the tornadoes, flash flooding, things like that. But people don't realize that home fires deaths are the biggest catastrophe in the United States right now, and has been for a long time, is all the house fires. The Red Cross ourselves responds to about a house fire once every 8 minutes in the country. And that kind of varies a little bit. That's just the ones we respond to. There's more fires than that. That's just people asking us for requests. So house fires happen all the time. An average between 2,300 and 2,400 people die every single year in a house fire, and tens of thousands more get injured, and billions of dollars worth of damage. So we're always concentrating on the house fires all the time, but also preparing and responding to the big disasters. And so since we're in the big disaster season right now, I'd like to talk about is one of the biggest things I'd like to talk about is communication. Because I have a wife and I have a child, and if I can't get a hold of them during the time of crisis or emergency, nothing else matters. I don't care about the Red Cross. I don't care about any other job. If I can't communicate to them and make sure they're safe, if we're separated with work and school during the day, or my son's going to college, or I have a loved one in California, it doesn't matter where they are. You want to be able to get in touch with them. If not, nothing else matters. So it's having that communication. So a couple of things that we figured out, we as a collective responders and preparedness people, that with cell phone towers, they're not designed for a 400% increase in volume, even texting. So if we figured that out, here in Denver, when the Broncos won Super Bowl 50, with everyone live streaming, you couldn't even text across downtown or downtown Denver because it was inundated, right? And Columbine, the same thing. You couldn't text across the parking lots if you were in Denver, far away from Columbine. But those cell phone towers are inundated with all the stuff coming in. The one thing we figured out though is out of state works, so you can call out of state, and the way the cell phone towers work and where they ping off of each other. So the goal here is having an out of state contact. So by having an out of state contact, they could be your relay person and kind of your instant commander being out of state. So I'll give you a real quick example. If I work downtown, my wife works in the tech center, my son goes to school in Parker, and there's a wide area catastrophe here in the Denver metro area, and I can't call my wife or text my wife or call or text my son. We can't get in touch with each other. So what we do is we start calling our out-of-state contact. Let's say they're in Pennsylvania. And then so I start calling my contact in Pennsylvania, and they say, hey, I can't get hold of my wife or my son. They know we're activating our out-of-state contact and communication plan. So they know we're going to be calling them every 15 minutes to check in and making sure we're safe or if anybody's in danger. So I can call, I might be the first one to call, my wife might be the second, my son might be the third. Within the hour, I know that we're all safe and everything. I can still do my job for the Red Cross because my wife checked in with the out-of-state contact, and my son was able to check in with the out-of-state contact. So all three of us communicated without talking to each other in person. We communicate with their out-of-state contact. You could do that vice versa, so you have a loved one no matter where they're living. And you could do that. Now, if you have a little one, or that's in school, like elementary school, you don't have their own cell phone, they're not a teenager, you put that out-of-state contact in as your number one person for emergency contact. So if there is an emergency at the school, they call that out-of-state contact, let them know your child's okay and everything's okay. And then that person says, great, I'm out of town, you call the next person on the list. So now that out-of-state contact has that situational awareness that the child's okay in elementary school. And that way the communication keeps going. Or if my wife's not, safe, then I know I have to drive to go make sure she's safe and go help her out, right? Because you can't communicate to your loved ones during crisis. Nothing else matters. And you yourself can cause a secondary disaster by trying to get to that loved one by driving, speeding, running lights, and doing other things. And same thing with other people are out there doing the exact same thing. So having the out-of-state contact, being able to communicate with everybody and not causing a secondary disaster can really help in those times of crisis. So having that out-of-state contact is very important. Practicing that plan and making sure they're farther out of the area, then that way they're not going to be affected if they're in the earthquake or hurricane zone. They're far enough away from those areas. So out-of-state contact, communication, because nothing else matters if you can't get in touch with anybody. Any questions on that, Kiki?
I don't think so. No. And I think that you were also going to mention quickly what is that in the age of COVID, you were telling me that it sounds like that there's been house fires have increased. We never would have thought that, by 20 to 25%. So kind of in closing, if you could talk a little bit about that. And I know that the Red Cross offers some really amazing benefits to home owners and families to make sure that they are, that they've taken the necessary steps to prevent fires in their homes.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so we have, the Red Cross has a home fire campaign that we've been doing for since 2015, and we install over 6,000 alarms here in Colorado and Wyoming in our region every single year, non-COVID. And they're the 10-year kitty alarms installed to 3 per household. Because the number one disaster we have in the United States is the house fire. We average over 2,300 deaths every year in this country, and it's going up because of COVID and people staying at home and overloading electrical systems and all kinds of stuff like that. But the home fire responses are going way up. And so we can still do the education part right now during COVID, but what we want to do most of the time though, but non-COVID, is go out to households. It can be a condo, it can be a house, it can be a mobile home. It just can't be a commercial property. And we go out house to house, and we spend about 20 minutes at that household and discuss evacuation plan, a communication plan, and we install up to those 3 alarms. in each house. And we can do that anywhere in Colorado and Wyoming, non-COVID. During COVID, though, you can still go to our website and you can just basically do an internet search for Red Cross Colorado Prepare. And you get on a landing page, will say home fire. There's a form to fill out. And you put your information on that form. And then once the COVID restrictions have been lifted, then we'll contact that homeowner to go out there and do the install. Also, on that note too, is for volunteers, we're looking for volunteers to help us do those installs and preparedness work. And we're always looking for responders to deploy around the country. Like I said, right now we have the hurricanes, we have the wildfires, and we have thousands of volunteers deployed around the country. About on our disaster responses, about 97% of all the responders are volunteers, and that's from leadership all the way down to the service associate, as we call it. So volunteer leadership all over the place for us. We're looking for retired people or people have 2 weeks at a time to deploy. You do need training to deploy to make sure you're set up for success. And we also have what we call non-disaster opportunities for preparedness work. And we're always looking for people to help us teach preparedness classes, going out and doing the alarms for us. We also have local responses too. We have called them DAC calls, so those home fires. So we send volunteers out to houses. For we average about 3 fires a day in Colorado and Wyoming that we send volunteers out to. They can happen 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we're looking for volunteers to help us out in that area. And you once again, just go to Red Cross Colorado volunteer, and you can go in there and find out opportunities to volunteer for the Red Cross. And we're always looking for great volunteers.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much, Troy. I know in just a matter of minutes, there's no way that we can talk about everything that the Red Cross does, but especially, you know, with September being National Emergency Preparedness Month, this is a great time to just add to your calendar and make, you know, take some actionable steps for you and your family to protect yourselves. And thank you again, Troy. As far as communications, Nick Meacher, who is going to be joining us on one of our future lessons, he talks quite a bit about emergency communications. So you can never learn enough about that, because again, a lot of times we think that this stuff isn't going to happen to us, but you just never know. That's what all the folks who are currently being affected by the fires on the West Coast here in Colorado, across the United States, also thought. So an ounce of prevention makes a huge difference. Coming up next week, we are going to have Bruce Euler, who is with State Farm. And unfortunately, with all of these fires and natural disasters comes the insurance side of things. So he's going to talk a little bit about what you need to know to make sure that you have a good experience there. So with that said, I'm going to shut down for the day, and thank you once again, Troy. All of the links will be down below, and we will make sure that you guys have all of this information. This will be posted on our blog. So if you want to share this with families and your family and friends, please do so. Thanks again.
Thanks, Kiki.